Deal Island was definitely a highlight of our trip. There were Bennett's wallabies everywhere around our camp in Garden Cove, one of which got a little too friendly at times. On our first morning, we set off on the 2.5 kilometre walk to the caretaker's cottage, first along a beautiful mown grass path and then through lovely shady casuarina forest. After passing through the island's fenced-off airfield, where we were challenged by some Cape Barren geese, there was a final section of casuarina forest, within which we stumbled across the famous Strait chair. Then it was out into the open and the caretaker's compound, the hub of the island. All paths lead to here. Heading east is the track to Winter Cove, and to the west the compound overlooks the beautiful East Cove. The concrete path leading down to East Cove is very steep. At a bend in the path is a bench seat, the second spot on this side of the island where you can get mobile reception. On this first day, we were keen to check out Winter Cove, which we wanted to be our launch point for the big crossing to Flinders Island. It looks much nicer later in this episode. Then we retraced our steps back to the Bennett's wallabies and our camp in Garden Cove. On day 2, we met the caretakers David and Dale, who were very friendly and welcoming. We had Dave to thank for all the lovely mown paths we had been walking on. They offered us morning tea and we had quite a long pleasant chat sitting outside in the sunshine overlooking Murray Pass. Then it was back to sightseeing, and there are plenty of sights to see on Deal Island. The remains of the old whim where supplies used to get hauled up from the East Cove jetty. The swooshway between Dover and Erith Islands. The not white cliffs of Dover. Little Squally Cove. All viewed during our walk up to Barn Hill. At Morning Smoko, we had been told that the painters who had been working on the lighthouse were flying out today. So just before 12:30, we were back at the airfield with Dave and Dale to watch the spectacle. It looked like an expert landing to us in a tricky crosswind. A little while later, we were all wheeling the plane back into the air as it sped downhill towards Garden Cove. And almost exactly 24 hours later, I was travelling in the opposite direction, sitting in the tray of the island's little Daihatsu truck. Andrew and I had been heading to the Strait chair for a weather forecast when we encountered Dave walking to Garden Cove to warn us of some horrible weather on the way and to offer us the vacant workers' cottage as accommodation. We gratefully accepted. We packed up at Garden Cove, stowing most of our gear in the kayaks and making sure that they were tied down securely. The drizzle was just starting as we carted our remaining gear up to the shelter of the tree line. And thanks to Dave and the truck, we were back at the caretaker's compound while it was still only drizzling lightly. Our accommodation was luxurious. Andrew and I wandered around in the daze, marvelling at the bathroom facilities and switching lights on and off like we had never seen civilization before. To top the day off, Dave and Dale had us over for tea that night for a lovely meal of pan-fried tuna fillets, baked homegrown potatoes, peas and corn, accompanied by a bottle of rosé. It was absolutely delicious. Dessert was a blueberry muffin, finished off with a cup of tea and chocolates. We were living like kings. During the afternoon, I hid away in the shed repairing a tomato steak bangerina, originally made by Beau Miles. We had discovered at yesterday's morning tea that it was still in existence, but that the head had split in half. With some help from Andrew towards the end, the repair was completed. It felt great to have made this connection with Beau's Crossing 4 years earlier. Out of sequence, but a perfect segue, this is the island vegetable garden where the tomato steaks get banged in. As I leave the garden, Notice the strong latch and locking mechanism. If you don't swing the locking mechanism all the way back when entering the garden, it is possible to lock yourself in there. Don't ask how I know this. This building is the island's little museum, which is well worth a visit. And this is the walk back to our luxurious accommodation. The front of the caretaker's house is just visible in the background. The day we had moved into the workers' cottage ended up very stormy with thunder, lightning and heavy rain. The following day, Dave took us for a drive up to the lighthouse to check for any water damage. On our return, Dale served a delicious vegetable soup for lunch, and we were given spuds and eggs to cook up for tea. We really were getting spoiled. A glorious sunset finished off the day. Dave and Dale were in the last few days of their 3-month stint on the island, and next morning it was time for us to say goodbye. Summing up their hospitality, I can't do better than showing an extract from Andrew's diary. After Dave dropped us back at Garden Cove and we had repacked the kayaks, we were off on the short paddle to Winter Cove. There was some magnificent coastline along the way, especially the area next to Pulpit Rock. Then, after rounding East Bluff, we headed into Winter Cove. There was only a little swell running into the beach, and we both landed safely and set about setting up camp again. Unknown to us, Dave had been checking the track and was watching proceedings from up on the hill. We did see his welcome sign scratched into the sand. Camping in Winter Cove was quite a bit nicer than Garden Cove. In the corner of the beach and amongst the casuarinas here, we found we could get phone reception either by walking back up the track to the top of the hill or walking along the beach, doing some rock hopping and getting to about this rock here. Walking along the beach was much easier. Friday's forecast was reasonable, but Saturday had better conditions for the big crossing to Flinders Island, so we spent a day just lazing around Winter Cove. From Telephone Rock, we booked into the White Mark Hotel for Sunday night. I could have done without the possum fight on top of my tent on Thursday night, but the Cape Barren geese were okay, and the wallabies were once again welcome company.